It's often sad, isn't it, when we lose amazing people? Obviously, it's life, it's what happens. And recently, as many people know, we lost the beautiful British actress Shirley Ann Field. And when you look at it and you kind of think, wow, what a career this particular lady had. And in a different world, she would have become a megastar, naturally beautiful, and also a very gifted and talented actress. I was looking through some interviews that I've been lucky enough to partake along with Shirley Ann Field. And of course, for many people, they'll realise that she was in many iconic films of a particular era. As she pointed out, the late 1950s and 1960s, early 60s at least, was all about this thing, the kitchen sink drama, reality. The thing that we'd enjoyed, say, in the 30s, 40s, and early 50s had all been about magical spectacle, those big MGM musicals, those westerns that were nothing but westerns where the women, of course, looked impeccable, surrounded by dust, dirt, and all sorts of stuff, but the men looked sweaty. Do you remember that? Now, what's interesting here also is that at this particular point, Shirley Ann Field had managed to land a role opposite the leading actor of the day, Laurence Olivier. Now, Laurence Olivier was, of course, deemed one of the greatest of that particular generation. But by the late 1950s, his movie career, his theatre career, wasn't necessarily going too well. That's because, of course, he'd been a star many years, all thanks to the late 1930s with Wuthering Heights. But of course, there's always this thing called reinvention. And so by the late 1950s, he decided to reinvent himself for the kitchen sink drama, role, as it were. So he starred at the Royal Court in John Osborne's The Entertainer, which was then turned into a movie in 1960. Now, Woodall Films were behind this particular venture, and they paid a lot of money for said film rights to make sure that it was going to become a spectacular. Tony Richardson, Thora Hird, Dame Thora Hird, from Last of the Summer Wine, no less, also had a pivotal part in the movie. A lot of movie buffs will know that also Joan Pulwright was, of course, the leading female lead. And not a lot of people knew at the time that she and Larry were having this, secret affair. The only person that truly knew was, of course, Lawrence's wife, Vivian Leigh, none too pleased. Filming took place, though, up in Morecambe in Lancashire, the gritty northern holidaymakers town, and it was filmed at some of the theatres up there to give it a realistic approach. Archie Rice, the character that Laurence Olivier was playing, was apparently loosely based on the Brighton comic Max Miller, although they denied it at the time. Now, as I say, Woodall Films was in its infancy at this point. The man behind Woodall Films was none other than the future Bond empire, Harry Saltzman. Now, Harry Saltzman didn't want to waste money. This is what it's like in the world of movie making. Laurence Olivier was only picking up £5,000, a lot of money in 1960, but nothing like his colossal fees. As I said, he was trying to reinvent himself, really as late as 1957, when he co-starred opposite the beautiful Marilyn Monroe in The Prince and the Showgirl, with the showy press launch at the Savoy, and of course over in New York. He did nothing to help the failing movie career. He saw this as something of a comeback. Now, Harry Saltzman decided that they couldn't afford all the expensive costs of that movie. And one of the things that he felt that he could save money on was this. In the character's role, apparently Archie Rice drank a lot of Bass beer. It was a big thing back then, And so the idea really was to approach the brewery to see if they wanted to sponsor elements of the film. They apparently were quite keen, but were also very keen to make sure that they got prominent product placement. And Harry Saltzman said, not a problem. One problem there was Laurence Olivier, who thought it was beneath him to be seen with such a thing like a beer in a thespian performance, and apparently an almighty row ensued. Harry Saltzman, though, wasn't giving in and basically said, we need the money. So he had a life-size cutout, a cardboard cutout of a Bass beer bottle to place in various scenes. Now, Larry spied this and went absolutely potty, refusing, of course, to even, listen to the idea that they could possibly need the money. After all, this was a Laurence Olivier film, bound to make money. You know what's coming. Sadly, of course, for Harry Saltzman, and this was backed up by Shirley Ann Field and Dame Thora Hird, as I say, who I was lucky enough to meet and interview on many occasions. Well, the movie actually bombed. And so you got to love these stories, haven't you? So as the returns came in and they realised, in fact, that nobody was going to see the movie, Harry Saltzman decided to send crate upon crate for days at a time to the office of Laurence Olivier of Bass Bitter, so that he had something to drown his sorrows with. See, Bass were virtually willing to underwrite a major part of the cost of the movie, and Harry pointed out that if he'd have listened to him, they could have been celebrating rather than commiserating. As ever, though, the actor won out, and the entertainer did very little to entertain the public in 1960. It's amazing what you find when you look back at interviews and what truly went on behind the scenes. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.